If you get health anxiety and you're looking for a proven way to overcome it, I just got to tell you, you're definitely in the right place. My name is Ty Hicks, founder of mentalhealthcoaching.com. I'm glad you're here. I'm not going to waste your time with a long intro. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. So, as you can see, title of today's presentation is Free from Health Anxiety in 90 Days. The method 612 people have used when therapy, medications, and coping mechanisms failed them, all by identifying the hidden game that your subconscious keeps playing and rewriting the rules. Okay. Now, if I heard someone claim, first of all, that health anxiety could be overcome in 90 days, back when I was struggling with my anxiety, I definitely would have thought to myself, there is absolutely no way. And this is probably complete and total BS, right? How can this guy claim that something I've been struggling with for years could just be overcome in just a matter of 90 days, right? And I want to point out that if you're skeptical, I totally get it. It's all good. And after all, you have probably tried just about every damn thing you can think of to deal with your anxiety already. You have no clue who I am. You have no clue how this process works yet. So, of course, it is not going to sound very believable to you right now. But I want to let you know I 1000% have the proof to show you that this works. So, for starters, I used to have extreme anxiety for years, and the method that I'll be teaching you today helped me finally overcome my anxiety when therapy, medication, and coping mechanisms didn't work. Okay, and then additionally to that, in the past 8 years of doing this professionally, I've helped 612 clients that I've worked with one on one. And we survey them before they use the method. And I'm going to teach you today to assess how severe their anxiety is, as well as how often they are feeling it. And then we survey them after they've finished implementing our system. And the typical minimum result that they report is a reduction in the severity and frequency of the anxiety by 75%. So most clients do much better than that, but 75% is the minimum that our typical client will experience when they follow the system. Okay. Now, if that sounds unbelievable, I really encourage you and welcome you to go to our website anytime you want. You can see that we have 241 documented case studies and testimonials where people describe their experience in their own words. And we have maintained a 5-star rating for 8 years online as well. The results this method produce are all completely transparent, unlike any other company out there assisting people with their mental health. So you can always just go to ty-hicks.com/testimonies anytime you want. You can see the direct literal screenshots of exactly what people have said. You can hear the videos of exactly what people have said. It's all right there. You can see it very clearly. And while we have hundreds of documented proven case studies of the method I'm going to show you today working for all types of anxiety, what's really cool is that health anxiety in particular is the most common type of anxiety that our clients come to us to have us help them solve for them, that we use this method for. And this method in particular that I'm going to be showing you today is going to be very applicable to your health anxiety. I'm going to be showing you why health anxiety feels so persistent, why it feels so exhausting, and why everything you've tried so far has failed. And more importantly than that, I'm going to show you the new proven way to get rid of it for once and for all that is working incredibly well for people like you. Okay. Because the truth you really need to understand is if you're struggling with health anxiety, it's not your fault. Okay. And it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been following a system, more than likely, that was just never really designed to actually fix the problem. So let's dive in and talk about exactly how to do that. Now, first of all, who is this for, right? So that you know that you're in the right place. Well, this is for anybody who is struggling with high levels of health anxiety, who has either not found therapy, medication, or other coping mechanisms to be sufficient. Maybe they've been helpful, maybe they are just not sufficient for getting you the level of relief that you really want. Or perhaps you simply just want a way to handle your anxiety without therapy or medication. Some people are like that. This is also for you if you're constantly checking your body, if every ache and twinge or flutter sends your brain into full-on panic mode, if you're constantly Googling your symptoms, you know it's probably nothing. And knowing that looking things up online is really only going to make it worse, but you feel this uncontrollable compulsion that you just really don't know how to stop. And, if this is for you, if no matter how many doctors you see and how many tests come back as normal, you still really can't shake that feeling that something's deeply wrong. Okay. Now, if that sounds like you, I really just want you to know, really sincerely, I see you, I get you, I've been where you are. This message is 1000% for you. Okay. So today we're going to answer the most important question for overcoming your health anxiety. All right. Now, whether you realize this is the most important question for overcoming your anxiety or not, this is just, it is what it is. Right. Now, the real question is, how do we stop trying to respond to the surface level symptoms of anxiety and finally eliminate it at the source? That's the real question. Okay. Now, if you have a health anxiety, you already know that your mind is basically continuously, it's just got this consistent automatic series of negative thoughts. And those thoughts are totally involuntary. And you probably waste a ton of time and energy constantly reacting to those automatic thoughts, right? Now, the entire idea behind a coping mechanism is to be able to respond to those anxious thoughts in a way that creates some kind of relief. Now, think about it. If we knew how to finally address the true source of the anxiety, if you knew how to address the real root of the anxiety, where your mind was no longer automatically generating the anxious thoughts to begin with, well, you would basically have no more limitations on being able to live the life that you really want to live, right? I mean, if we could get rid of the mind's natural tendency to have those thoughts in the first place, there wouldn't really be any need additionally for these coping mechanisms, right? But I want to take it one step further, right? Not just how do we do that, not just how do we deal with it at the source, and not just how do we deal with it in 90 days or less, but more importantly, how do we do it in a simple, easy, common sense, and proven way that's really going to last, right? How do we do this without you having to rely on band-aid solutions like medication, where you trade one unwanted feeling for another side effect? How do we do this without you, feeling like you're just sitting in a room with a therapist talking about the same stuff over and over? Waiting endlessly to be given some clarity, hoping, to God that you're going to be given a plan, when instead it really just feels like you're kind of just spinning your wheels forever, right? And how do we do this without doing something bizarre and weird and, just a total Hail Mary, right? Like hypnosis or energy work or acupuncture or, any of these other crazy things you see out there, which look, hey, I'm sure they provide some value. I'm sure other people swear by them, but let's be honest, they're not really dealing with the source of the problem, right? And how do we do this without exerting a lot of effort? Like something using something crazy like some exposure therapy system might have you do. That's really the question that we're going to be answering today. Okay. Now, just in case you think this isn't possible to do, I want to take a quick question or excuse me, a quick second to introduce myself because it definitely is. So my name is Ty Hicks, founder of Mental Health Coaching, and I want you to understand that I once had debilitating anxiety and that made me suicidal and landed me in a psych hospital for 10 days. I tried therapy and multiple medications for years, which just did not work for me. It was only once I developed the process I'm going to be teaching you that I finally overcame my anxiety. And I've since stayed anxiety free for over 15 years, all without any medications, therapy, or relying on any other coping mechanisms. Okay. Now, I've stayed that way for a really long time. And additionally, in addition to that, we've had over the past 8 years of me doing this professionally, I've helped 612 people use the process I'm about to share with you right now to overcome their anxiety too. Now, don't get me wrong, right? My life is not perfect. I'm still human. I have the occasional negative thought or feeling here or there. But the difference is that I no longer have anxiety, right? Like the only thing I'll have is like the normal stuff. You're supposed to have like a feeling of worry that might happen every once in a blue moon, like in a situation totally legitimate where like a car almost hits me on the highway or something like that. But even that only lasts for a few seconds and then I'm right back to feeling calm again. Okay. And in addition to helping these 612 clients over the last 8 years, I've also been able to work with some pretty cool people as well. So I even taught this method to Olympic athlete Abby Napton to help her overcome her performance anxiety. and help her land a spot on the diving team of Team USA, which was really cool. She was referred to me by a previous client. Took us about 9 weeks to get that dealt with. Now, because our process is working better than anything else out there, I've gotten a ton of copycats over the years, but almost no one really gets this right, right? So, what I'm going to do is show you the fastest and most effective way to get this done. So, before I do that, though, let's quickly talk for a second about what doesn't work, okay? Because 90% of what's out there being taught in the mental health industry simply doesn't work. It just takes way too long. But the problem is, people who are struggling, they just have no clue, right? They have no clue that there's an alternative available that's working so much better. And I just want to cover this with you because there's so many ads out there, there's so much content, there's so many people trying to rope you into one strategy or another. And I really don't think I'd be doing right by you and, doing my job as an industry leader if I didn't make it clear to you what works and what doesn't and just showed you like the straight facts. Okay. So let's just talk really quickly about what's happening in the industry right now. What is happening? What is going on? Okay. Well, in the past few years, there's been three major things that have happened that I think are absolutely ruining people's mental health and keeping them from being anxiety free when it's unnecessary. And I'm sure you've probably seen some of this. So first, the rate of prescriptions being thrown at anxious people has never been higher. Okay. Ever since the COVID pandemic, more and more people are getting prescribed anti-anxiety medication, even though the results that those medications produce has never been lower. Okay. So in fact, antidepressant prescriptions commonly prescribed for anxiety increased by approximately 21% from 2019 to 2022, with a notable rise in telehealth prescriptions from 1.5% to 31.4%. So not only were more people getting prescriptions, but more people were getting prescriptions quickly through like chat conversations, through Zoom, and without their doctors having a lot of context as to what was going on. And that trend has basically continued ever since. And that's because, well-meaning people like yourself, who just want to feel some relief, mistakenly believe that the source of their anxiety is biochemical, even though this is completely false and has been empirically proven again and again. So let me explain. Okay, most people don't know this. So a recent peer-reviewed medical meta-study. Now, a medical meta-study is like the highest grade of academic research that you could possibly have. It means it's not only been performed by people who are medically trained, but it has been peer reviewed by people who've been medically trained. Okay. And what this research has found is that there is no conclusive evidence that low serotonin levels cause depression or anxiety. Despite the popularity of the serotonin theory, research suggests no significant difference in serotonin activity between those with and without depression or anxiety. Okay. Furthermore, the chemical imbalance theory was heavily promoted by pharmaceutical companies in the 1990s to market SSRIs, even though studies now show that SSRIs do not correct a serotonin imbalance. These are direct quotes right from the medical study. Okay, another direct quote right from the medical study is that clinical trials have demonstrated the antidepressants, SSRIs, are often barely distinguishable from placebos in terms of effectiveness. So those are three direct quotes right from the research out of the University of College London, just from research just a couple years ago. Okay. And now even more research has shown that, quote, the serotonin theory is not supported by scientific evidence and should no longer be presented as a factual explanation of depression or anxiety. That's from Molecular Psychiatry in 2022. Furthermore, quote, SSRIs and similar treatments only have any kind of positive effect in about 50% of patients, and only 25% of patients achieve full symptom relief. That's from Science Daily in 2022. Okay. And even though all of this has been reproven in the early 2020s, it was actually proven previously back in 2015 and 2005. Okay, so one pair of researchers, Lacasse and Leo in 2015, found that, quote, the FDA had accepted aspirational language that the drugs, quote, help to restore the brain's chemical balance and, quote, bring serotonin levels closer to normal, even though both claims were and remain scientifically meaningless, end quote. Okay, so there is no such thing as a scientifically established correct balance of serotonin. There just isn't. And the entire theory that anxiety was caused by a biochemical imbalance and could be corrected with medication is a myth. And it is a myth that has been sold to the public to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. It was never proven, and it has been disproven at least three separate times by medical researchers in the last 25 years, in 2005, 2015, and then in 2022. Okay, now, and let me be very clear, I in no way blame doctors and psychiatrists for prescribing the stuff. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is literally just the facts and the medical research. Okay, so please don't get mad at your doctors. Doctors and psychiatrists largely do three things, right? First, they try to help their patients feel better with whatever tools they have available. Number two, they tend to recommend things that other doctors are doing to try to help their patients. And then third, they keep recommending what they are used to recommending. Right? That's basically what doctors do. Now, here's what one psychiatrist had to say about this when interviewed by these researchers. This is a direct quote from a psychiatrist. He said, "We don't know how these medications actually work in the brain," meaning psychiatrists. Psychiatrists like myself don't really know how these medications work in the brain. I'll often say something to my patients like, the way that Zoloft works is it increases the level of serotonin in your brain, and presumably the reason you're depressed or anxious is that you have some sort of deficiency. And I say that, haha, he chuckles on the interview, not because I really believe it, because I know the evidence really isn't there for us to understand the mechanism. I think I say that because patients want to know something. And they want to know that as physicians, we have some basic understanding of what we are doing when we are prescribing medications. They certainly don't want to know that a psychiatrist like me essentially has no idea how these medications work. Okay, that was a direct quote from a public interview with psychiatrist Daniel Carlat from Science Daily. Okay, now in short, doctors are just doing what doctors are trained to do, diagnose and prescribe medication. They don't know how to actually get to the real root of the subconscious problem. It's not their expertise. It's not their specialty. They just look at anxiety as if it's the same as diabetes or heart disease, and it's not. It's not at all close. They prescribe drugs because they're trying to use any tool in their tool belt that may produce results. But remember, the bottom line is SSRIs and similar treatments are only somewhat effective in about 50% of patients, and only 25% achieve full symptom relief. That's from Science Daily. Okay. No one knows this, however. Okay. Patients with anxiety simply assume that their doctors are giving them a solution to their anxiety problem when they get a prescription. They have no clue that it's statistically very unlikely to help at all. Well, it's basically a 50-50 shot, I guess I should say. And almost certainly, it's not going to solve the problem. There's a 75% chance it's not going to solve the problem. Not only that, but medical research has linked anti-anxiety medication over the last 30, 40 years that it's been prescribed with all sorts of issues. It has now been linked with Alzheimer's, cardiovascular issues, cognitive impairment, dementia, and of course, really scary stuff that I've had some clients who've dealt with. They came to me because they couldn't take their medication anymore. Scary stuff like serotonin syndrome, tardive dyskinesia, okay, with you where you've got involuntary muscle spasms and you lose control of your motor functions. Not to mention the physical dependence and the need to slowly taper off that it creates. So what most people with health anxiety who are really well-intentioned, they really just want to feel some relief, what they do is they do this phenomenon that I call playing the pharmaceutical lottery. Right. What they do is they just think that they should do whatever their doctor recommends. And that if they do that, they will eventually find the right medication, cocktail eventually. This works for some people, but most people will waste months or years tweaking their dosages and their prescriptions only to get really small improvements in their results. Okay. So why in the world? Why in the world would we ingest something into our bodies for years and years that isn't even solving the problem, gives us weird side effects? Most doctors agree you won't be able to take forever. And that literally causes your body to have a physical addiction to it. It just does not make any sense. It's just happening because cultural inertia has been going on for the better part of 50 years. Now, let me be totally, absolutely, completely clear. Okay. I am not recommending that you go to your medicine cabinet and flush your pills down the drain. Okay. Do not do that. Even for the clients that I work with to help get to the real root of the anxiety, I always tell them very clearly, very upfront, that we have to deal with the root of the anxiety problem first. And then you need to work with your doctor to responsibly wean off your medications so that you don't experience a complication due to a withdrawal. So it's been a while since I checked the data, but last time I checked, about 84% of our clients are off their medications safely, reliably, and also anxiety free within 6 months. And then some people have to taper off over the course of about a year or more. Okay, but over 90% are off their medication in full in 12 months who follow our system. But you got to follow the system first, or else it just doesn't really work. And that's what we're going to be explaining today. Now, just know that if you've been trying to solve your problem with medication and it has not worked, that doesn't mean you're defective. It means you are part of the 75% of the population where medication is just insufficient for dealing with the problem, and that is not your fault. Okay. So medication is leaving people high and dry more now than ever, and it certainly did for me. So, what other option is the industry providing these days? Okay. Well, secondly, a lot of people naturally turn to some form of talk therapy, right? Therapy is by far the oldest method out there for trying to deal with anxiety. It was created in the late 1800s. And what most people don't realize is, in many ways, it hasn't changed all that much since then. I mean, in many ways, it is very truly ancient. Now, a lot of people have had a lot of hope with therapy recently because it seems on the surface in recent years that there are a lot of new methods and a lot of approaches out there, but that really has to do with innovation in marketing methods, innovation in social media content marketing, and not really innovation in the core methodology that's being used. So people are getting this confused, and I want to make sure that I set this straight because this has been a major trend and it's led a lot of people astray. So, firstly, there's big companies out there, right, that have made talk therapy more accessible through telehealth, Talkspace, BetterHelp, people like that. Okay. And now, on top of that, in the past 20 or so years, another big trend that's happened is there have been slight variations on the talk therapy model that have popped up. Things like DBT, EMDR, hypnotherapy, hell, CBT isn't even what CBT used to be, and the like, right? There's lots of different things like that. So a lot of people, have understandably had a lot of hope and a lot of optimism, and they've believed that, one of these variations might very well be the missing link, that has kept them from their anxiety recovery. But what's interesting when you look at the data is the overwhelming amount of people are just not finding talk therapy or these other variations to be sufficient. So, some recent data out of the National Health Service in England has found, quote, despite the widespread use of talk therapy, improvement rates for anxiety remain well below 50%, indicating the need for more comprehensive treatment options. That was in 2024. Okay, not all that long ago. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, many patients report feeling that they have plateaued with talk therapy after several months, with dissatisfaction stemming from its inability to address the root cause of anxiety, particularly in more severe cases. Patients often report that while talk therapy helps them cope, it doesn't provide the tools necessary to fully overcome their anxiety. That was from the National Institute of Mental Health in 2023. So, in the past 8 years of my professional career, I've done about 21,000 hours of documented consultations and coaching hours with people with severe anxiety. A huge chunk of that has been people with health anxiety. And well over 75% of the people I've spoken with report that therapy has been somewhat helpful, but far from sufficient to provide them with the lasting relief from the anxiety. While some people find therapy very helpful, there's just a really substantial portion of the population who never found therapy to be sufficient. And that was my case. And I thought I was alone back in the day. I had no clue, that most people were running into the same issue. Now, especially for health anxiety in particular, Talk therapy is notoriously insufficient and the different variations of it. But if that's the case, right, if this data is there, why in the world is it that so many people, are not getting results? Like what's going on here? Therapy is like the number one most recommended thing, has been for hundreds of years, right? Why is it not working? Well, what most people with anxiety don't know is that there are two major limitations that keep therapists from really being able to truly help their patients experience lasting relief. Even though the therapists themselves, I mean, they care deeply, they care passionately about their patients, they truly want what's best for them. But, the thing is, it's neither the therapist's fault nor the patient's. It's just that the entire system has some major limits baked into it. They really keep it working for everyone. Okay, so the first major limitation is what we refer to as the broken patient myth, right? Therapists are trained that anxiety is a lifelong condition that cannot be overcome. Now, mind you, this theory is over 200 years old. Okay, the basis of classifying anxiety as a permanent disorder was Sigmund Freud's work in the 1880s. Okay, now at the time he came up with that theory, and that anxiety was an unchangeable disorder, literally cigarettes were being prescribed to treat asthma. Bloodletting, right, was still being used as a medical practice, and lobotomies were rising in popularity. That's how old that theory is. Now, of course, therapists don't do things exactly like Freud did back then, but there are a couple key assumptions that are still held on to today, including the idea that anxiety is largely unchangeable by the patient or the therapist. And what that means is that every single thing that a therapist is taught in their schooling is based on the premise that your patient will never really recover, but you can help them feel a little bit better. In other words, cope through indefinite therapy. So therapists go into schooling and they are put in this box, and that box is you're never going to really be able to help your patient overcome anxiety, but you can help them. So they then learn tools, but all of the tools they learn exist inside of that box of you're not going to break out of this box. You're not going to be able to overcome the anxiety. Okay. And that becomes a problem. So let me ask you, just kind of a simple, quick question, right? Like, would you ever want to hire a mechanic to work on your car who didn't know how to fix it? Who was never trained how to fix it, who was only ever trained to kind of fix it? I mean, I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't, no matter how nice they were, how much they wanted my car to be fixed. It just doesn't, if they didn't believe it could be fixed, I wouldn't hire them. Right now, the second big thing that keeps people from getting good results in therapy is the non-directive principle. So, going back, okay, Freud's entire theory was that if you just simply sat someone down and let them talk, talk, and talk, and if the therapist did not directly intervene with any direct direction or advice, that the patient would eventually arrive at new conclusions on their own and work through their issues. He literally called this the talking cure. That's what was referred to and still referred by. So, and this was built on many, many times over the past 200 years. So Carl Rogers, you probably heard of Carl Rogers once or twice. He built it on this idea in the 1950s. And he created a mandate for therapists to simply hold what he called unconditional positive regard for your patient. And the whole idea was so long as you don't judge them and you just hold a space for them and you care about them, the healing will occur. Okay. And even though today's modern therapists will offer some advice, it almost never goes beyond their standard set of go-to tips and tricks that, tend to only offer mild coping at best. So I'm curious, have you ever heard a therapist say things like this? Let me teach you a breathing exercise you can do. Have you tried meditation? Try to get some more exercise. Let's try some tapping. You shouldn't focus on things you can't control. Try to think more positively. Okay. Now, beyond that, therapists are literally taught in school to, quote, be like a mirror, reflecting the patient's thoughts and feelings back to them for further exploration. And that's probably why you've heard things in therapy sessions like, how does that make you feel? Tell me more about that, many, many, many times. So the bottom line is, that there is a major, major mismatch between patient and therapist expectations of what the purpose of therapy is, especially today in the modern world. Okay, patients usually want a plan. They want a roadmap to recovery and feeling normal again. But the thing is, no therapist is ever trained in how to provide their patients with a true roadmap for lasting recovery. But therapists are taught no map exists, no such map exists. They're only ever trained in how to help a patient embrace a lifetime of coping. Patients believe that their therapist has a plan, or that some therapist out there somewhere must have a plan. But the truth is there is no plan. They're never taught a plan. In fact, the therapist believes if there is a plan, that you have the plan hidden somewhere inside of you, right? And the only plan is for you to keep coming to therapy, keep talking with the hope that eventually, and maybe even almost accidentally, you will feel better. Now, I want to be totally clear, right? This whole non-directive approach does work for some people with some issues. This can be very helpful for processing grief or some forms of isolated trauma. A portion of the population is able to feel sufficient relief from just talking about enough. In fact, I actually refer some people to therapists. I do consultations and I will very often say, hey, I really think therapy is the right thing for you to do. So I'm not anti therapy in all situations. I'm just want to bring your awareness to the data and the facts, which is, again, remember, as we saw, as of 2024, less than 49% of people reported experiencing sufficiently positive results, according to the National Health Service, which leaves over half of people who are suffering out there hung out to dry. I mean, isn't that alarming? Right? And the people who keep trying it, who don't get very far, think that it's their fault or that it's a matter of mismatched personalities or that the relief will come eventually. But I mean, if so few people are getting satisfactory results, why in the world are so many people staying in therapy for years on end? And, the main reasons, there's basically three main reasons. The first one is, it seems, quote, free, right? Or seemingly low cost, even though you end up spending countless hours of your life and years of your life wasted talking endlessly about the same issue instead of just solving it. People forget like what an hour of their time is worth. Think about what an hour of your time is worth, and then think about how many hours, a couple of years of therapy racks up to without a return on that investment of your time, right? And number two, it's all the client knows how to do usually. And it seems better to do something, rather than nothing. And then number three, the client usually keeps hoping that at some point the breakthrough is going to come. They're holding out hope that it is all part of the therapist's quote plan. Right. So again, imagine your car is broken down. It's not functioning properly. You can't get from A to B. So what do? Well, you go to the mechanic and the mechanic tells you this. The mechanic says, well, you know what? Your car's never going to function fully the same way again. But I tell you what, you bring your car back in here every week, right? Let's set up a regular appointment for you. We'll talk about it. We'll keep talking about the car. We'll keep talking about what's broken, what you dislike about it. Maybe you'll figure out how to fix it yourself if we talk about it for a few years. I'll give you a few things you can do that will kind of fix it a little bit, make it a little bit better. Some people start to feel better, about their broken cars after a while coming here for a long time. So it might be helpful for you too. Oh, and don't worry, your car insurance will cover it. So there's, no out-of-pocket cost for you. Well, does that sound like a good plan? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think so. The two major limitations of the broken patient myth and the non-directive principle were why I deliberately chose not to become a therapist and to find my own way to help people get the kind of recovery that I had achieved. Now, I want to be totally, totally clear, right? I am not coming for therapists here, right? I am not anti-therapists. I'm not even anti-therapy. I want people to know that therapy is not the best thing in every situation, right? The vast majority of therapists out there, for the record, are incredibly caring, incredibly intelligent people that are just doing what they've been trained to do, right? Many of them are my colleagues and friends, right? And many of them are very effective at helping a portion of the population deal with a lot of issues. But I also see their struggle, the therapist struggle, and frustration in trying to help a portion of people that they are just not trained on how to deal with. And it's really not their fault necessarily. they don't know how to help you. And more importantly, it's not your fault that the whole process is just not getting you what you want. And I'm here to tell you, if you've tried therapy and found it somewhat valuable, but far from sufficient to deal with your health anxiety, you're not alone. That's over 50% of people. Okay. Now, in terms of what's happening in the industry, those are the first two major trends that are happening. Medication is not working for a lot of people, even though it's getting prescribed, and therapy is increasingly ineffective, okay, for people to create lasting recovery. Now, there's a third major trend that's been happening in the industry that's been getting people caught up, okay? Now, the third thing that's happening in the mental health industry is pretty fascinating, honestly. So, if you're anything like I was when my anxiety was at its peak, if you've already tried therapy and medication and those didn't work really well for you, you've probably tried to solve the anxiety yourself, right? In the past 10 years or so, people have been trying to be their own therapist or their own mental health coach by turning to the vast abyss of the internet for answers. And if you're like most people with substantial health anxiety, particularly, most of your time on the internet is probably in three main chunks. First, compulsively Googling the potential meanings behind every sensation in your body. Once you find the worst possible explanation for what you're feeling, your mind then latches onto it, refuses to let go, and you go down a click hole, looking for, quote, proof that you do, in fact, have this disease until you are unshakingly convinced it is the case, and you're not going to be dissuaded until you get a test result from a doctor, maybe not even then. Number two, you probably spend time on the internet doom scrolling, right? Through funny, distracting, meaningless posts or games, that really just you go to create ease in your mind, and be temporarily distracted and keep you from the looming fear of disease waiting to pop up again, right? Or third, you're probably also on the internet looking for real, tangible answers on how to feel better, only to find cheesy, surface level content that makes you feel good for a moment or that makes you feel, seen or validated. But after months and months of consuming it, your life still looks exactly the same. Your social media feeds are probably littered with all sorts of motivational, pump up, feel good social media posts, and that's because mental health influencers are a dime a dozen. And do you know why this trend has blown up massively in the past 10 years? Well, it's because so many people like yourself are struggling emotionally, and the type of content that they engage with is content that simply validates how they currently feel. And I'm curious if you've ever seen a post like this before, all right? In today's world of constant stimulation, it's inevitable that you will feel overwhelmed. It's not your fault that the world is designed to make you feel anxious. It's okay to not be okay. Don't let anyone ever tell you differently. And if they do, it's time to say goodbye. This is a friendly reminder to take a breath, be kind to yourself, and send positive energy out into the world. You ever seen a post like this? Of course you have. They all sound like this. And do you know why there's so many posts out there like this? Did you know that these posts are literally strategically crafted not to give you a true step-by-step system for recovery, but these posts are designed to get you to click the like button? Okay, they're literally hacking the chemistry in your brain to get you to click the like button and go, you know what? Wow, that makes me feel good. It validates how you already feel without giving you any knowledge, any wisdom, any real way to address the root of the problem. It didn't tell you anything new. It didn't tell you how to make a change. None of that, right? Either that or you'll see a post like this. These ones are even worse. Here's 10 signs that you might actually have XYZ exceptionally rare condition you've never heard of. Sign number 1, you feel tired when you wake up in the morning. Sign number 2, you feel hungry multiple times a day, especially after several hours between meals. Sign number 3, you often feel stressed when thinking about day-to-day responsibilities. Sign number 4, you disagree with others from time to time. Okay, now obviously I'm being a little bit facetious here, but there's so many posts out there that are just telling you super common sense stuff. It might as well be like a horoscope. You're gonna read it, you're gonna agree with it, and you're gonna go, oh wow, yep, that's me. And this type of content is what's causing more and more people to self-diagnose themselves. It's a new phenomenon that has never happened before except in the recent years. In fact, 1 in 4 Americans, 1 in 4, have self-diagnosed a mental health disorder based on information from TikTok, considering that as a notable source, right? That was found in 2023. It's probably even more since then. And this is causing people to believe that they know what their real problem is when they actually have no clue, and neither does the person posting the content. I consult with people all the time who tell me that their anxiety is through the roof and they're totally sure that they have to heal their inner child or that they need to do their daily grief work, right? Or that they've got some idea that, they've got to do. And I have to remind them compassionately and lovingly that if they knew what the real problem was and how to solve it, they wouldn't have the problem anymore. The fact that they have the problem still is evidence that they have a blind spot. Now, that's not their fault, and they are enthusiastically running in the wrong direction. Okay. The reason your feeds, your social media feeds, are littered with this stuff is because influencers know that the vast majority of people are far more interested in just two things. Number one, feeling understood, and they also are craving to have an explanation for what their problem is. Most content, I guarantee you'll never be able to unsee it, either makes you just feel understood or it makes you feel some form of an explanation about what the problem is. That's the vast majority of it. And they grow their following, and the larger their following, the more ad dollars they can bill for their on their feeds. Okay. But the people who really continue to prioritize validation based information over transformation based information are the ones who will stay stuck indefinitely because they will confuse information that makes them feel good for a few minutes with the information needed to create lasting recovery. Okay. Now, let me be clear. I am not knocking all mental health influencers. They are just doing what they're incentivized to do. They create content that will get massive engagement, but will result in very, very little transformation for people. And they only teach band-aids, not how to address the root of the problem. And this is a big reason why my team and I have strategically not focused on building a massive social media following, but instead have ruthlessly doubled down on making sure our client success is through the roof. Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with, eating some candy every once in a while that just makes you feel good for a few moments, but eventually you've got to get your vegetables if you want to be healthy and prevent disease. Okay. And the willingness to go beyond the surface level and address the root problem is going to be what separates in the next 10 years the people who merely want to recover from the people who actually do it. Okay. The people who are able to see this phenomenon and distinguish between validation based content and transformation based content, those are the people who are going to actually get the mental health that they deserve. Okay. And so here's what I want to just simply pose to you, right? Rather than us getting caught up in these trends and these three phenomenons, if our goal is simply to retrain the brain to stop having automatic anxious thoughts in the first place, why don't we just do that as quickly as possible? Right? So, what is the method that works when none of these other things work? Well, if you're truly serious about not managing your anxiety, but learning how to overcome it, then there's one simple concept that you've got to understand. Now, this key concept is what has enabled me to finally overcome my anxiety, stay anxiety free for so long. And I've never seen an exception to this with the 612 client success case studies that we've had. Okay. So, the first key concept you got to really understand to get to the root of the problem is what we call the formula for peace of mind. Now, I know that sounds a little silly. It might sound like I'm exaggerating here, that there's some formula for peace of mind. It sounds a little, reductive. But if you'll bear with me and just try this on for size, I think you'll see that this works. And I'm keeping it simple on purpose so that you can actually use this and apply this in your life. Okay. So the formula for peace of mind is when your current life conditions, so how your life is right now, when that matches up with your subconscious rules for life. Okay, that's when you feel peace of mind. And you don't have to take my word for it either, right? You can verify if this formula is true by looking at your own experience. So just try this on for a second. Okay, in your life, there's probably one area, at least one area, where you're generally satisfied. You're pretty pleased. So, it could be your health, it could be your finances, it could be your business if you run a business, it could be your marriage. I suppose if you're dealing with health anxiety, it's not going to be your health. It could be your relationship with your kids, or at least with one of your kids. Hell, it could even be, just a friend that you have right now. Not everybody is satisfied fully in every area of life, but we all tend to have at least one area that we're pretty satisfied with, right? So ask yourself, what is one area in your life that you feel generally at peace with? All right. Just kind of answer that for yourself or put it in the comments if you like. And let me use a real example here. So I had a client a little while ago who had severe health anxiety. His name was Derek. Now, Derek is, he shared his story publicly. We've got an interview with him on our website. He's given me his full blessing to talk about his situation. And when I asked him the same question, hey, what's an area where you feel generally pleased with? He thought for a second and he said, my son. I love my relationship with my son. And I said, great. Why do you love your relationship with your son? Okay. And he said, well, let's see. I help him with t-ball. He likes to spend time with me. We do things together. He's a good kid. He listens when it's important. And I said, great, awesome. Now let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. I want you to imagine he didn't want to spend time with you. Imagine if he didn't listen to you. Imagine if you guys had zero shared interests. Okay, would that bother you? Would that create a sense of unease? Would that create a sense of anxiety in you? And he said, oh, absolutely. And the reason why it would cause him an issue is because Derek's subconscious rules for a father-son relationship are the son should listen to the dad. The son should want to spend time with the dad. The son should want to do sports with the dad. The son should have manners and be honest. Okay, those rules had become a big part of Derek's subconscious beliefs because of his own past experiences, probably a lot of them from his own childhood. Okay. And that's all a rule is, by the way. It is a subconscious belief about what has to happen. I want you to remember that. That's going to be important in a minute. All a rule is a subconscious belief about what must happen, what has to happen. Okay. So because this area of Derek's life matched up with Derek's subconscious rules, he felt happy about his relationship with his son. He did not feel anxiety or unrest. He did not have intrusive thoughts around his relationship with his son. He didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. But if these core subconscious expectations were to not be met, you can 1000% bet your bottom dollar that it would cause Derek anxiety. His mind would be ruminating about his son all the time. He would be having thoughts like, why can't I connect with him, or why won't he listen, and so on. If he didn't make changes with his son or make changes to his expectations, the anxiety would become more and more consuming as his mind tried to find a way to balance the formula. Does that make sense? So if you look at the things that you have anxious thoughts about, okay, it is because there is an unmet set of rules, subconscious rules, I promise you. Now, they are probably subconscious, meaning that you're unaware of exactly what they are, just like Derek was unaware of his subconscious rules as well, but they are there. Okay, more on that in a second. So I was able to show Derek why he was pleased with, his relationship with his son. But when we took a look at Derek's health and his anxiety, it became very clear that there were a different set of subconscious rules that were not matching up with how his life was currently. So he told me about how he would feel sensations in his body consistently and that he would want to know what they meant. He told me that his mind would involuntarily imagine the worst possible scenario taking place in the future. He told me that he kept scanning himself constantly to make sure that everything was okay. And what I helped Derek do is uncover what his subconscious rules were that were causing the anxious thoughts in the first place. And we uncovered that some of Derek's subconscious rules were the following. I should know with 100% certainty what is going on in my body at all times. Additionally, I should know with 100% certainty that I have no health issues in my body at all times. I should, furthermore, never feel an unknown sensation in my body ever. And I should never have a negative thought or worry or anxious thought ever. Okay, now I'm curious, can you relate to any of these beliefs? Okay, these are probably some of the things that you believe deep down too. But I doubt that you ever knew that these were the things that you really believed. And that's kind of entirely the point. They are subconscious. Okay, these are the most powerful things driving your every thought and emotion, but we're all unaware of what they are. That's what subconscious rules are. They're the most powerful things driving our thoughts and our emotions, but we're unaware of what they are. So this means that Derek had, like we all do, a set of subconscious rules about what must happen in order to live life comfortably, in order to go to work, to leave the house, to go to the store. Those rules had to be met. And if they weren't, he couldn't really function very well. The rules he had for his son were being followed. So he felt peace of mind when it came to his son. But the rules he had for his health, his body, his mind were not matching up with reality. So he felt anxiety. So let's take a layer deeper look at this. Okay. Now, what I had to teach Derek in order for him to overcome his health anxiety was what every person who truly wants to do so has to learn. Okay, this is just what you have to learn. If you're really serious about overcoming the anxiety, not just coping with it, there is no way around it. You have to learn this right here. What you have to learn is how to rewrite the rules of the subconscious game that your mind is playing in order to make it winnable. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, let's just introduce a very simple metaphor. I want you to imagine for a second you're playing a board game for the very first time. Okay. Now, in order to play the board game, just like any board game out there, you simply need to know two things. You need to know, number one, the goal of the game or the goals. And number two, you need to know the rules of the game. Okay. If you follow the rules to accomplish the goals, you win. If you fail to follow the rules and you do not accomplish the goal or goals, you lose. Now, what if I told you that you've been subconsciously playing your own game of life, so to speak, according to a simple set of subconscious rules ever since you were a child? And that every moment of your life, your subconscious is trying to, quote, win the game. When you feel like you are winning, you feel happy and you have zero anxious thoughts. When you feel like you are losing, quote, losing, you experience anxiety. Okay, so let's return to Derek. Let me show you a real life example of how this works. It'll all make sense very simply. So for Derek, within a few hours, I helped him uncover all of his anxiety causing subconscious beliefs. And what we found out was that before he was experiencing health anxiety, his old subconscious values many years prior, before his anxiety was a problem, were the following. Number one, family. Number two, fun. Number three, career growth. Okay. These were his old subconscious values. So what does that mean? Well, that basically means that the rule book, as a metaphor, for his game of life was basically, well, family is the most important thing. As long as my family is doing good, life is good. So long as my family's good, I want to have fun in my life. Right? If the family box is checked, second most important thing to me is I just want to have fun. And as long as I'm having a good time and my family is good, I would say that the next most important thing is I need to just simply be making some kind of progress in my career. If I'm doing those three things, life is damn good. In fact, life is just about perfect. Okay, that was basically Derek's old way of looking at the world. That was his old set of subconscious beliefs about how life was supposed to go. And he developed these beliefs over the course of his life. Some of it he adopted from the role models of his parents. Some he took from the culture he grew up in, from his spiritual beliefs, his education, and from other mentors, and examples he had along the way. Just like it happens for all of us. His belief system formed over time as he made tons and tons of subconscious decisions about what was truly important to him and what was not important to him. You see, If you put all of our beliefs together, okay, what you get is what we call a model of how the world should be. And when life equals our subconscious model of how the world should be, in other words, our rules, we feel peaceful, we feel happy. Now, when life does not equal our subconscious model of how the world should be, when life does not match up with our rules, for a moment, if it doesn't match up for a moment, we feel frustrated or sad. When we feel like life substantially, consistently does not match up with our subconscious rules of how the world should be, we feel the sensation of anxiety as our mind struggles to try to figure out a way to get the two of them to match again. And when we conclude and believe that life will never match our subconscious model of how it should be, when life will never match up with our rules, then we start to feel depressed. That is it. In a nutshell, that is the big overall insight that took me the better part of a decade to figure out. And that's where all anxiety and depression comes from. You can trace every feeling of anxiety, every feeling of depression, moreover, back to a set of subconscious rules that the person is unaware of that are being violated consistently. That's it. And for a very long time, Derek had a really normal, happy life. He was a happy guy. He had no anxiety. And why was that? It was because his old set of rules was pretty easy to get to match up with reality. He was the one in charge of being able to win his own game, and the rules were really simple and really easy. All he had to do was get his life to match up to the core expectations of prioritizing family, having fun, and making some progress in his career. Pretty simple, pretty easy. That's what we refer to as a winnable game. But then something happened to Derek that happens usually for people with health anxiety. And every person, just about every person I can remember with health anxiety, this is where it occurs. Without him realizing it, his subconscious rules changed. For him, it happened in response to what we call a significant emotional event. So if I remember correctly for him, it was some like legitimate health scare where it seemed like he was having a heart attack, I believe. And what Derek didn't realize was that when that significant emotional event happened, his subconscious basically rewired itself. Because after all, I mean, the subconscious's number one priority is to keep you alive, not to keep you happy. It's to keep you alive. So what happened was that Derek's values changed into needing 100% certainty, number one. Number two, safety. Number three, health. Number four, family. Number five, fun. Number six, career growth. And his rules for 100% certainty were my body should not have any sensations that I do not know the source of. I should know with 100% certainty what is going on in my body at all times. I should know with 100% certainty that I have no health issues in my body at any time. I should never feel dizzy, unwell, sick, or not at my best. Those were his rules. So now Derek's subconscious rules for life were basically, okay, my number one priority is I have to be 100% certain that I'm healthy, that I'm safe, that I'm okay. I cannot function or focus on family, fun, growth until I am 100% certain that I am okay. Therefore, every sensation has to be accounted for. Every possible scenario has to be prepared for. I will focus on family, fun, and my career once I establish the certainty, which will make me feel safe and healthy again. I just can't even allocate brain power to that until I get the certainty. Okay. Now, can you relate to that? Can you relate to Derek's story? More than likely you can. And, what do you think is the likelihood, by the way, that Derek will be able to consistently have his life match up with this rule book? About 0%. So before the significant emotional event, Derek felt peace of mind because his subconscious game of life, so to speak, was winnable. In fact, he felt he was winning almost every day. But when the event occurred and his brain rewired itself, the literal priorities of his nervous system became different without his awareness or his permission. Now, his mind was compulsively trying to get a whole set of rules to be followed They were just never going to be followed consistently. And as a result of his mind requiring things that were never going to happen in order to function or focus on anything else, his mind continually felt anxious. So think of it this way. Imagine I sat you down in a chair and I made you play a board game. You cannot leave from your chair until you win the board game. You must try your hardest to win. But the only way you can win is if a whole series of things that are outside of your control and that violate the laws of nature somehow miraculously take place. Could you see how anxiety inducing that scenario would be? You see, anxiety is nothing more. Hear me very clearly on this, because if you get this, it'll make your whole life a whole lot easier. Anxiety is nothing more than your mind trying to win an unwinnable subconscious game. Okay. So for Derek, his brain was perpetually going, I have to be totally certain of what this sensation in my body means. Oh, but I can't be totally certain about what it means. But I have to be, but I can't be, but I have to be, but I can't be. That's anxiety in a nutshell. When we have a set of subconscious rules wired into our mind, we end up chasing our own tails inside of our mind perpetually. And let me make a point that is critical to understand. I so wish I would have heard this back when I was struggling. It is not enough to acknowledge that you have unrealistic expectations. Okay. Every person with health anxiety knows that they have unrealistic expectations and that they, quote, should let go of them. But they also feel that they just can't for some reason. And why is that? It's because those expectations, those rules are hardwired into the subconscious. This was the major breakthrough that helped me finally get on the road to recovery. And knowing that you shouldn't be governed by the old rules is never enough to make the change last. If all it took for us to make a lasting change in our nervous system was to become aware that we should stop running the old pattern, then there would be no people on the planet who want to quit smoking but don't. There would be no such thing as someone who overeats. And we would stop worrying about what we can't control as soon as we realize that it doesn't make any sense to do so. Becoming aware of the rules your mind is governed by is only the first step. And that means until you identify the subconscious rules your mind is operating by and rewire them, you will always have anxiety. Okay, I'm being a little aggressive on this point because it's just so important and people miss it. But here's the good news. Once you do uncover the subconscious rules that your mind is operating by and rewire your mind to follow a new set of obtainable rules automatically, the anxiety disappears every time. Okay, now for the sake of simplicity, I've only shared like some of the most important parts of Derek's subconscious rules, but there were dozens and dozens of them to dig out of the subconscious and map them out. And what I've found over the years is that there's really only 7 core types of anxiety in the world, but each person has their own slightly unique version. For some people, their rules revolve around things like, I must be perfect or else I'm not good enough and worthy. For some people, it's I must please others or else I'm not good enough and worthy. For some people, it's I must take care of other people's problems or else I'm not good enough and worthy. For people with health anxiety, the core subconscious belief system usually is something like either A, I must be certain of things I cannot be certain of, or else I cannot feel safe and I cannot feel peace. Or B, I must feel control over things that I cannot control, or else I cannot feel peace and normal. Okay, so let me again remind you of the key thing you want to remember. Anxiety is nothing more than your mind trying to win an unwinnable subconscious game according to unwinnable subconscious rules. And that means that until you identify each and every subconscious rule that your mind is operating by and you rewire your brain to no longer follow them, the anxiety will be a part of your life. I can promise you that. I can bet my entire reputation on it. But once you do uncover the subconscious rules that your mind is operating by and you rewire your mind to follow a new set of obtainable rules automatically, the anxiety will disappear. Or at least for me, It has only ever always worked every time I've followed this process, right? Maybe one day it won't work, but every single time I've followed this process, it's worked when someone follows it. So if our job is to rewrite the subconscious rules that your mind is operating by, let's ask ourselves, are we going to get that by talking every week for hours and hours on end about your childhood, your triggers, your feelings? Are we going to get that by screwing with the chemicals in your brain and numbing yourself? Are we going to get that by just allowing the anxiety to exist and just try to let it pass by like DBT or meditation would try to do? Are we going to get that by just trying to white knuckle it and go through life and, just trying to grit our teeth and use our willpower and do it like exposure therapy? Are we going to retrain the brain by just trying to jam as much positive thinking as we can into our head until we feel nuts? Are we going to get that by meditating every day? Are we going to do it by journaling about our feelings? No. Or are we going to do it by doing any of the other silly things people do just because they have no clue what else to do, like sucking on hard candy, box breathing, cutting out caffeine? No, because every single one of these strategies is simply a way to respond to the anxious thoughts. But remember this, the only way to get the anxious thoughts to disappear is to rewrite the unwinnable subconscious rules. So you see, when his subconscious believes, I have to be 100% certain of what every sensation in my body means, and I have to be certain that it is not sickness. Think of that core belief like being like the trunk of a tree. Okay. The trunk of that core subconscious belief will now sprout all of the anxious thoughts from it. Like, why is my arm tingling? Should I be on heart medication? Maybe I should Google that. Is my breathing normal right now? Do I feel dizzy right now, or is that my imagination? And 100 other variations. This is why it doesn't matter how many doctors he goes to, how many tests he gets, how many times he puts the heart monitor on his finger, how many times he meditates, how many times he does the breathing. The thoughts will keep popping up. It's like, we can use coping mechanisms like tree trimmers, basically, and trim all of the tiny branches off day by day, season by season, but they're just going to keep growing back over and over and over again until we chop the trunk of the tree down. We don't have to focus on 100 different anxious thoughts a day for the rest of our lives just to get through the day. We don't have to rely on coping mechanisms playing whack-a-mole with our brain. Okay, it's a complete fool's errand. It's just silly. It doesn't make any sense at all. All we have to do is three things. Number one, we have to identify every anxiety causing belief, like every core causing belief. Okay, there's only going to be maybe 10 to 12 big ones for each person. Number two, we have to eliminate those unwinnable rules or beliefs, same difference. Okay. And then third, we have to retrain the brain to follow a winnable set of rules by default. That's it. So for Derek, what that meant was rewiring his subconscious to basically look how it did before the health anxiety was an issue with a few updates. And we retrained his brain to no longer require the things that were not possible for him to obtain in order to feel safe. And we rewired it to automatically focus on the things that were truly most important again. So for him, that was family. We put family right at the top again. Fun, number two, career growth. We did leave safety and health on there, but we got rid of the certainty. We got rid of this idea, this subconscious belief of I have to have 100% certainty. We got rid of that. So the brain was not focused on trying to be certain anymore. In that way, it's like getting the dog to stop chasing its own tail. Okay. And by doing it this way, Derek no longer had to do any daily maintenance. He no longer had to have coping mechanisms to respond to his anxious thoughts. He didn't need to meditate because there were no thoughts to try to get rid of anymore. And in about 90 days, I mean, granted, it takes a little time to do this, but in about 90 days, we got it. So his brain was following the new rules by default. Okay. And again, we want to do all of this in just that period of time, in about 90 days. We don't want to spend years on this. Okay. We don't want to spend all this time analyzing and dissecting and ruminating. We just want to get to the point where the brain is rewired and you get back to living the life you have always wanted to but anxiety has kept you from doing that. And again, that rules out like every strategy out there that everybody else is teaching. And remember, here's the big thing you want to really remember because people get stuck in this. You don't have time for coping. You don't. We cannot put you in a position where you're constantly responding to every anxious thought that comes up. Those strategies take forever and they usually don't even work after years of trying them. I mean, hell, if you've got major health anxiety, I don't have to tell you, this is a major problem now. It's affecting your marriage now. It's affecting your children now. It's affecting your career and earning potential now. It's affecting your ability to even get a night's sleep now. You know, your coworkers, your spouse, your boss, your kids, your family, your friends, they need you at your best. When? Now is when they need you at your best, right? You don't have time to spend a ton of time hoping that 6 months from now, this, coping mechanism is going to kick in and finally work, or that the therapy is finally going to start working for you. You could end up losing your marriage or your career by then. You could end up getting passed over by a promotion by then, which was Derek's situation. He was about to be passed over for a promotion. He knew he had to deal with this if he had any chance of advancing his career. Like if you're, I don't, many of you guys are parents. If you've got kids, they're whatever age they are, do you want to wait a year to get the anxiety dealt with, right? You don't have a year. Your kid is only going to be 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old once, right? You don't want to be losing those moments of being able to be present and there for them. You and how you're showing up in your daily life is molding and shaping how they're going to react to the world, right? You don't have time to wait. You can't wait, right? So we can't put you in a position where you're relying on coping mechanisms. We need to rewrite the subconscious rules that your mind is following now. So, how do we do that? What does that look like? Okay, well, imagine you have this board game and you're frustrated with it. You keep trying to play it, but you keep losing. So you come to me and, I'm this, board game expert. I might be dumb in other areas, but I got at least this one thing figured out, right? I can tell you that for sure I do. I've got this one thing figured out. And I use my spiffy little checklist to help you identify each and every one of the problems that's making the game unwinnable. Because we know after doing this so many times, there's just a simple checklist of what we got to check for. And then what we do is we systematically rewrite the rules so your mind automatically follows the right guidelines. Okay. Basically, all we got to do is number one, we uncover your existing set of rules. After all, we can't change something that we don't even know exists in the first place. And we don't have to guess. After seeing so many hundreds of health anxiety cases, it's very easy to predict and identify the underlying beliefs causing the issue, but you can't do it yourself. That's the whole nature of a subconscious thing. You have to have a system and a process to pull that out. Okay, number two, what we do is we go through the checklist of the 7 types of rules that cause anxiety. And we systematically remove all of the old rules that are causing you to feel like you are, quote, losing the game. Third, now what we do is we actually set you up with what you need to be able to play a winnable game. We set out what your new belief system needs to be to ensure that you absolutely get the life that you desire. And then fourth and finally, we just simply use conditioning strategies, not coping strategies, conditioning strategies to train the brain to adopt the new rules by default. So you don't even have to think about it anymore. So your brain's on autopilot working for you as opposed to being on autopilot working against you. Okay. So why is this way so much better? Why is it awesome? Firstly, it's a proven process. I've been teaching this successfully, consistently for 8 years. And that's why we become an industry leader and other people are taking notice. So here's from Molecular Psychiatry, direct quote: studies support that anxiety is a learned response, not a permanent disorder, not a biochemical imbalance, and it can be unlearned through brain retraining techniques. Here's a direct quote from University of College London. Our research shows that with the right tools, the brain can be conditioned to respond differently to anxiety, enabling long-term relief. Okay. This is also awesome because it takes you from deeply anxious to anxiety free in just a matter of a few months. Okay. Even with extreme anxiety, which is basically all we really deal with, it's just a matter of identify, eliminate, and rewire. That's it. Okay. Rewriting your subconscious beliefs. Also, here's another reason why this is awesome is rewriting your subconscious beliefs is something you've been doing your whole life anyway, but you've just never known how to do it intentionally. I mean, after all, you were not born with the belief of, I have to be completely certain of what every sensation in my body means in order to be safe. You weren't born with that belief. Okay. Even if you've been dealing with health anxiety since childhood, which is kind of rare. Okay. But you've already been doing this. Rewiring your subconscious beliefs got you into this, and rewiring your subconscious beliefs will get you out of it. This is also awesome because you never have to worry about managing your anxious thoughts again because you're dismantling the underlying beliefs that are causing them in the first place, right? We're not trimming the branches, we're chopping the trunk down. The other reason this is awesome is there's no band-aid solutions, no dredging up tons of drama from the past, no talking in circles, no uncomfortable exposure, no excessive use of willpower, just trying to push through, no more repression. Rather than feeling like you're adding more things that you have to do in order to get through the day, now you're actually like letting things go, which feels so absolutely freeing. It's like finding all of the pebbles in your shoe and removing them instead of just taking painkillers to be able to walk. Okay, it's also awesome because it doesn't make you reliant on a therapist or a prescription or anybody else, even me, right? Like people use this process and they say, hey, thanks, Ty, see you later. You're now playing the game of life from the inside out, where you are in charge of how you feel instead of the outside in. That's what you're used to doing, where you require all sorts of things to go a certain way in order to feel peace of mind. So that's another reason why this is awesome. Another reason this is awesome is you learn a set of skills that you're never ever going to forget. You become immune to relapse because you now know how to keep from adopting any limiting subconscious beliefs in the future. Really powerful. You can teach this to your spouse, to your kids. Many times that means breaking a generational cycle of mental health issues. And rather than the vicious cycle of anxiety where things are getting worse and worse and worse, now you're in the virtuous cycle where everything continues to improve. That Derek gentleman first saved himself from being fired because he was missing 2 to 3 days of work a week. Then he got a raise within 3 months, and then he got a massive promotion within 8 months. I literally just chatted with him a couple weeks ago, and he's earning more than he ever was when I first chatted because the anxiety isn't holding him back from the opportunities anymore. Now, obviously, that's not typical. Not every single person gets a promotion and then earns double, what they were previously earning within 12 months. But it is very typical for people to advance their career, advance their earnings. People forget that anxiety is costing them not just time, but money. And I want you to really just ask yourself, like, can you start to see how powerful this is by doing it this way? Now imagine the relief that would come from eliminating all of the anxiety causing beliefs that you've collected over the years. Imagine what that would free up for you. Like, what would finally be possible? What most people don't realize is every anxiety causing subconscious belief, it's almost like an emergency brake being pulled. So it's like you keep trying to jam on the gas to get through life, to get what you want out of life, but you perpetually feel held back, limited, and you have no idea what's holding you back because it's subconscious, right? So that's the key thing. It's like identifying where the emergency brake was and releasing it. And so that way it's not bothering you anymore, instead of just slamming on the gas over and over. Now, our copycats always mess up the subconscious belief identification part as well as the elimination and replacement piece. And that means they end up providing a lot of surface level strategies that simply help people respond to and manage their thoughts rather than keep them from coming back in the first place. So we've started seeing in the industry now, a lot of people are starting to copy our stuff. They're talking about retraining the brain, rewiring the brain. Basically no one gets it right. And what that ends up doing is it just creates a lifetime of coping, but now under the umbrella of this idea that you're actually getting to the root of the problem. So what I want you to understand is, though, if you do this right, if you do it the right way, this has worked to not only keep myself anxiety free for 15 plus years, ever since I was hospitalized for close to 2 weeks, but it has worked for the past 8 years. I've been doing this professionally. and for the 612 clients just like you. And it's gonna keep working for another 8 years and more because the human brain just doesn't change. I've done this with clients as young as 13 and as old as 84. It doesn't matter how long you've struggled one bit. It doesn't matter how severe the anxiety is. It doesn't matter what kind of anxiety you're dealing with. Most people aren't dealing with just health anxiety. It's always some kind of mix, usually. No problem. Doesn't matter because we can always root out the beliefs that are causing the problem and that are unique to each person. We can always do that. So, if you've been looking at all these coping strategies and feel good content out there, but it leaves you feeling kind of, I mean, it did for me. Like, I just felt very like empty. Like, I always felt like there was something missing. It left me kind of thinking, like, God, I just really don't want to have to deal with this forever. I really just want to be normal again. Can someone please just give me something tangible, something common sense that I can implement right away? I'm telling you, there is a way to get your brain to feel content and think positively by default in just about 12 weeks without having to rely on ineffective coping mechanisms and without being dependent on anything or anyone long term. And that's why I've been in business for 8 years, why we have the best track record of results in the industry. I don't get sucked into the fads. My team and I, we don't get sucked into fads. We don't get sucked into the trends. Have never once looked at what the hell is trending on TikTok, right? We don't do that. I don't try to hack the social media algorithm. I don't prioritize clicks and views over transformation because I'm not here as a fly by night mental health influencer. I'm not trying to just build up a giant following and cash in really quick and then be nowhere to be seen, which, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's happening. People are doing this. They're building up these giant followings. They make a lot of money off of people. They sell a quick promise and then they're gone, right? A couple months or a year later. I refuse to play that game. We have built our entire methodology on what doesn't change, and that's human psychology. Okay. And we make our clients feel taken care of from start to finish because I'm here for the long haul. I will be doing this until the day I die. I am here to make my entire life dedicated to this cause, wiping anxiety off the face of the earth. And that's how we're able to take people from feeling deeply anxious on day one to automatically feeling content and thinking positively by default in just 90 days or less. Okay. That's how we do it. So, right now you do have a choice. It is totally your choice, and there's no wrong choice necessarily. You can, of course, keep trying to do these coping mechanisms that don't work. You can keep trying these things that you don't even like, that you've already been trying for who knows how long. Can keep doing the same things and hoping that something changes, which is the definition of insanity. You can keep hoping something changes on its own. I certainly did that for a long time because I just didn't know what else to do. But we all know that hope is not a good strategy. In fact, it's just not a strategy at all. It's delegating the responsibility and the power to something or someone else instead of being the one in control of where your life and your mental health is going, right? That's your choice. You can totally do that. I did that for a long time, for several years. Or you can, on top of that, I guess kind of also with choice number one, you can rationalize that now isn't the right time to do this, and allow yourself to kick back onto autopilot where all your current patterns of thinking take back over. And before you know it, another 12 months or more will disappear. I mean, when is the right time to finally get the mental health you deserve? When is the right time to be a role model for your kids on how to deal with the frustrations of life? When is the right time to remove the barriers of your earning potential with your career? When is the right time to give yourself the gift of daily peace of mind? I mean, it is only your life we're talking about, right? So if you want to finally get the mental health you deserve that's completely obtainable and that hundreds have already claimed, then here's how I'm happy to help you, right? If you do want some help, we're happy to help you. I have set aside some time in the next 24 to 48 hours to speak to you personally about how you can apply these ideas for your mental health today. Okay, now on this call, what I will do is a couple key things. Number one, I will help you identify what the major subconscious beliefs are that are causing your anxiety for you. Number two, I'll help you identify the ones you need to replace them with. Three, I'm also going to help you get clear on the top 2 to 3 conditioning strategies that will help you make the changes automatic and pretty immediate. And number 4, I'm going to make sure I hand you a proven roadmap to lasting recovery and relapse prevention. Okay, it's just a phone call, it's not that long, and I'm going to show you the exact steps that you can take to overcome the anxiety for once and for all. Okay, and I'm going to custom make for you a roadmap to live by every day with calm, peace, joy, and the ability to be present, excuse me, for the ones that you love. Okay, pretty cool, right? Now, my goal is this is my big evil plan right here. My goal is literally to convince you I can help you by actually helping you. That's my big evil plan out of this, right? I don't want to sell you anything. I want to convince you I can help you by actually helping you. Fair enough? Because here's what will happen. You're either going to want my help to get the full job done, or you're just going to say good things about me to other people because I helped you so much. So that's what I like to do. I like to just help people out. Helps me sleep good at night. Okay. So my promise to you is this call is going to shave years off of your learning curve to finally getting the mental health you deserve and desire. That's my promise to you. Okay. And what we're going to do as well is we're going to make sure that you're not getting pulled astray by any of these outdated tactics that don't work. And you're using the stuff that's proven. That's what we're going to make sure of, right? That's tried and true, and that beautifully sets you up to make sure that your mind is automatically thinking positively by default. Okay. I recently had a gentleman who left this comment on my website after his call. He said, I can't tell you how many times you have said something in these videos. So I did the session with him, and then he watched some of my videos. He said, I can't believe how many times you've said something in these videos that I felt on an atomic level. This is what I was looking for from years of therapy and never received. That's what he said. Okay. So now, who is this for, right? Now, these calls are completely, totally free, but there is a catch. And here's who this is for, right? Firstly, getting your anxiety truly dealt with at the core must be a must. Okay, please don't book the call if your anxiety is low, if you've got it under control, if it's not really bothering you that much. Okay, we've only got so many people we can help, and we want to help people on these free calls. We take them very seriously. We want to make sure you get clarity, but we only want to focus on helping the people who are in a lot of pain, who need the help, right? Now, that doesn't mean you have to be having a panic attack every day. It just means that you're serious about getting the anxiety dealt with because you see very clearly that the anxiety is really limiting your life and it's frustrating you. Okay. Just otherwise, if you got something that's working for you, like, don't take up our time. Okay. Secondly, you must be coachable and willing to implement what I teach you because this model is so simple. It's so effective. Every person who implements it is going to get control over their anxiety. And we don't want anyone taking up a time slot who isn't going to implement what we teach because it just robs someone else of a guaranteed change in their quality of life. Okay, so just please don't do that. So go ahead, click the button under this video to grab your spot. Or if you're joining with us online, just go ahead, leave a comment. You can comment the word session, and we'll go ahead and reach out to you to book that. Otherwise, you might see below this video a button. When you click the button, a quick window will open up. It will take you to a booking page that looks something like this. You can choose the appointment time that you want, and I will call you at that time. And again, we've only got spots for the next 24 to 48 hours. Spaces are very limited. Okay, so the calendar fills up fast. Please grab your spot now. And, let me just end with this. I want to just really thank you, for hanging out with me today. And listen, this ability that I've shown you how to do, how to identify, eliminate, and replace all of the anxiety causing subconscious beliefs is the single most important thing that you can know how to do to live a life without anxiety. You can, of course, spend the next 5 years waiting and hoping it changes on its own when the last 5 years have shown you that it won't. You can keep trying the coping mechanisms that have already been proven to be ineffective and all the data shows are not effective. You can hope something changes on its own. You can wait for some magic moment when it feels easy and just right to tackle this, which will never come. You are never going to feel ready to tackle this. There's never going to be that moment. And waiting for that moment to feel totally certain and to feel totally ready is the very problem you need to solve. right? Trying to wait until you feel certain and calm and ready to move forward and take action is the trap that anxiety has you caught in. So, I mean, you can keep waiting and hope it goes away on its own, but it's not going to do that. Or you can use a very simple process like this. Very simple, very proven. It's so easy. It's the simplest possible approach. And when you do it right, it's the only system that ensures that you deal with the problem at the root and that you establish long term independence. No crutches, no band aid solutions, no roundabout passive strategies, no temporary pump up BS, just rewiring the brain to think positively by default in a way that sets you up for a lifetime without anxiety so you can show up for those who you love in the way they're craving to see you. All right. So thanks for being with me here today. I'm Ty Hicks. Go ahead, click the button under the video to book that call or leave a comment under the video if you're following us online. And we'll go ahead and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, guys. See ya. Bye.